It has been a long time since I made one of these, but I am in the space to do it. Hello, everybody. I hope everybody's having a wonderful day. I just woke up actually, and I'm happy to be in the presence of you all in some shape or form. Yeah, today's a very calm day. It's a very cold day, and and that has a lot to do with it. But you know, we're here. We're maintaining. We're operating. Surprisingly, I think we've gotten used to the cold by now. If you're in the area where I'm in the United States, and that's the cool thing, because well, actually, it was foretold to us that we will be getting somewhat of an ice storm. So I'm looking forward to that. And I completely forgot that that was a thing happening this weekend. But I'm going to be as prepared as I've ever been, meaning I'm not making any new preparations. But I'm happy because I really want snow. We got a decent little snowstorm last year, and I think a lot of people were satisfied with that. So I'm hoping that we get something like that this year. But if not, we'll adjust. We'll make do. Um, I was having a conversation with a few friends yesterday, talking about the intangibles, and I wanted to, I don't know, I wanted to go a little further, or even just reiterate what I was thinking about yesterday. Yeah, because I was just driving, and the thought just hit me. I'm like, wow, it's really crazy. But my whole thing about tangibility versus intangibility, or just the haves and the have-nots, right? I feel like we're in a place that promotes having things. It promotes the material. This is a very material place, um, compared to like other states, countries, continents, right? Um, we focus a lot on having something to prove our worth or our value, to secure some type of satisfaction, some type of happiness, some form of appreciation. Um, and I don't think that's a bad thing to have necessarily. I think the issue comes in when that idea and that mindset has been exploited to the point where it's all about this thing now, you know? Like it's not a part of life, it wants to be life. And that's where I think we've all been um, lied to. We've all been deceived. Honestly, like, unless you had some type of financial plan, you have some type of big backing, you have some type of, stream of income that would allow you to live that idea of a life. Um, you're being compared to a standard that you may or may not reach, which is crazy to me because I feel as if uh, that idea of a structure says you don't mean anything to us unless you contribute something to us, and we don't really care to contribute anything back. We'll do the bare minimum just so you can optimize on what you have. And that's it. That's the game. And whatever you get out of it, oh well, it's fair game. I think the tricky part comes when, and we've seen so many different examples throughout history of this in recent history, that you get it, you actually become successful in that way. And somebody develops a reason, creates a reason to take it away from you, just for the sake of, whether it be a decision based off in fear, inadequacy, lack of any, healthy emotion, healthy reasoning. Somebody can just take it away from you. And so when I look at the things that are happening in this country currently, I'm amazed at how far the lack goes. I'm always amazed. Even though I know at this point it will be endless, just because of how infrastructures are set up. Even if there isn't an implied biased or an implied disadvantage that people are preset to undergo based off of certain conditions. And that's the crazy part. Like, I think we're so hyper fixated on what things should be, how they're supposed to be according to the standards, according to the rules. But the rules are changing every day. And that's just the nature. That's just the nature of life. Like, even the fields and the industries find new things that they have to observe and adapt into their realms. The science is changing every day. Technology is changing every day. Health standards are changing every day. We're always finding new problems to try to solve. But sometimes, instead of solving them just to solve them, sometimes we exploit those solutions, which is the crazy part. Because who in their right mind would try to exploit another human being once you step outside of the context of what capitalism is, or like the parasocial world of money, right? And what I mean by that is like thinking like who you think you are when you have these things, or who you think you are in comparison to having or not having these things. And it's crazy because when you rob that idea of its context, you see that it's just one person taking from another rather than one person adding to another. Whatever group, whatever corporation, whatever business that wants to be in charge of others so bad would rather see, excuse me, would rather see or practice to themselves killing themselves in a way, not directly, but every time you afflict a crime, or you do something to somebody, you're the first victim. The intended target is never the person who you see in front. It's always the person who's committing. Imagine the state of being that a person has to be in order to be in that frame of mind constantly. And not only just constantly, but adapted so well that now they've built a whole routine and a whole structure around that frame and mindset to justify it across different people's lives, to justify it to affect different people, people who they'll never meet. How tiresome it must be to constantly justify something that you may not agree with deep down, something that you have to justify in which you know takes a bit of your soul each and every day. And I was thinking about that because I went into this store, and it's crazy because it's so trivial, but I went into this store, and so down here, back in the day, I don't know if they still do it, but back in the day, you were able to go to a certain person's house in the neighborhood and buy like treats, sweets. One of those commodities was called a Dixie cup, if you from where I'm from, or a cold cup, if you from not from where I'm from. But basically, this whole thing is basically just a drink mix or a certain juice that has a lot of sugar in it, but it's frozen in a plastic cup. And you can flip once it's hard enough. You can flip the cup around and drink the juice from it. You could chew it, because it's basic. You can basically, I mean, at that point, you can basically like shave the ice from the actual frozen part of the cup. Back in the day, these things ran about maybe 50 cents, $1 if the candy lady was taxing, $1.75 if she was really just on straight bullshit. It did not. I understand why people were started to rob the candy lady back in the day. That's crazy. People was really robbing a candy lady, man. But yeah, that was a big thing back in the early 2000s. But I go into the store and they have an emulated version of a Dixie cup. Oh, and the reason that we call it Dixie cup is because of the brand type of cup that it was usually made in, from the company Dixie, which also kind of adds to like the southern, like ambiance of the, what am I calling it? Like the southernality of it. Like Dixie. That's got to be the most southern thing to ever come out the South. But Dixie cup, right? But I'm in the store and I'm looking at a Dixie cup that's priced at like, and I think there were different prices, but one I saw for $3, the other I saw for like either like $5 or $7. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, wow, to somebody who does not know where this came from, To somebody who doesn't know where this came from, this must be very cool. Like, this must be a very cool invention, right? But it's been around for as long as I can remember, probably even longer than that. And when I saw that, I was talking with my friends, and I said, "Yeah, I got to get on somebody's ass about this because this is crazy." And so I walk over to the counter. It's only like two people, and you know, they look like me, skin folk. So I ask them. I say, "Y'all got Dixie cups in here for about $5 to $7, $3?" Because now I'm curious. Like I'm frustrated, but I'm curious. And then I found out it was somebody around the city has made a business out of this, selling these high ass Dixie cups. But I get so animated, and not that animated, but like I feel some type of way. But it's crazy because I guess I scared the police officer in there because he started to follow me around after I said, "Oh yeah, I'm about to get on somebody's ass about this." Which is funny because I knew that type of reaction, that was the type of reaction I was going to get once I said that out loud. And so he followed me and he's just looking. And I'm just like, wow. So I had my little moment, but that shocked me. It shocked me to know that somebody would want to take such a fond memory or such a simple invention and exploit it. That's the part that broke me. That's the part that really shocked me. But it happened so much. I think it just hit different because at this age, you know, I'm 3 decades in at this point, 30 club. But at this age, um, I understand why people cherish the childhood they had, or how those memories become more valuable, especially if they were good. And that was a good memory for me back in the day. I was really outside as a kid. I was really crazy. I feel like I live a whole completely different, not entirely, but um, yeah, like that's a symbol for me now. That's a symbol for me now. Um, and I think that's another thing too. When I was over in that side of town, so I was by LSU's campus, and I realized too, like that Canes right outside the campus is remodeled. Like they came in with a whole different sign for it. It's black and white now. It doesn't even look like a standard Canes. And I was just thinking to myself, like, I understand why somebody did this. This isn't just a store anymore. Yeah. Growing up in Baton Rouge, like Canes came out the same year I was born, which is crazy to think about. How for a lot of us, the store is as old as us. We grew up with the store basically, but just seeing them expand so much and seeing them um, evolve into the brand that they are now is just wild. It's earth shattering. Like at some point, this brand didn't reach past Texas, barely to Texas. But I got excited when I saw Texas. And From the last I heard, I think they're all the way in Maine. They might be in all 50 states now, which is amazing. But just seeing that first Canes now, and it's like, oh, this is the first Cane. Like, this is history. This story isn't just a story anymore. And this relation in this story, it's a symbol. And I think that's the bigger conversation. I guess I'm trying to have about Dixie cups and chicken finger stores. you know, just seeing a lot of these places evolve and grow and develop along with the city is just amazing. I can't imagine how much of the city's development went and is due because of those things actually being here. I don't think about that a lot. I don't think about it as much as I should. But these are staples. It's a blessing to even make it this far in my life to see that. And even though they're very trivial things, um, they still mean something to me in a way that I can't explain. But I know when I see them, it feels like home until it doesn't. And I feel like that's the part that I'm processing through, is that some moments don't feel like home. You can be at home, but it just feels like you're in a whole different place altogether. And for Baton Rouge, I think that's been the story of this city's life. Even from when I listened to people who grew up in the 1970s, 70s, excuse me, even the early 2000s, seeing from the early 2000s, you know, how it's easy for us to get attached to places because they've been in our proximity for so long, and then one day just to see them go away. Baton Rouge is a very volatile place in that regard. We grew up with Cortana Mall. I loved Cortana Mall. You couldn't tell me nothing, especially in the early 2000s, back when, you know, the companies actually put work into the place and had events, like had modeling shows. Uh, and it was like a standard mall. It was like a low tech mall, and that's the crazy thing about it. But it had so much love because you just understood what it meant to like people. You know, had waterfalls in that mall that slowly got taken out, and people would put pennies in the water. That was amazing. That was a really great time. Toys R Us, existing. GameStop, and that's crazy because a lot of GameStops are closing down, which I feel like is, I don't know, like I've anticipated that for a long time, but just seeing so many close down, yeah, it makes me think. I'm scared to see which one goes next. I'm scared for the local stores because now, where's the competition? You know, but you could see it coming. You just saw in the ways that the merchandise was always marked down, and you know, the store doesn't really have a new feel to it. Like it feels like the same store from 2009. It feels like the same store from 2009. Which is crazy. Sometimes the nostalgia is bad, or being too nostalgic can stop a process. Being stuck in one period of phase can really stop a process. But I think, in the same vein, we have to understand that there's a time and place for looking back and reflecting that far, that far back. And that just happened to be one of them times. This just happens to be one of those times for me. But it sucks. We used to have TCBY down here, went away. Like all these old, old fashioned stores that were, like brick and mortar chains. It amazes me that we have a storefront for Lululemon. I didn't know Lululemon was that popular. And it baffles me so much because it seems so plain of a store. Bro, I went into Lululemon like one day and I was just looking. I'm like, hey, this shit looks like uniforms. It looks like uniforms and it's high price and the store is boring. I'm not sure what I was expecting, but it just didn't seem like a place that was inviting or welcoming, you know? Like, I think a lot of these businesses try to make their storefronts very like niche and edgy, but you have to be in a very niche and edgy place. Lululemon is almost dang near right by a gas station and by a Trader Joe's. These are not niche or edgy places. A gas station could be edgy, but nah, nah. Oh, shucks. Not in the way that I'm describing. Intentionally edgy, not edgy by nature. Like artistically edgy to make it look like it has some type of monetary appeal or value, not, you know. But yeah, those moments just made me think because I've been rolling around the city for maybe like the past 2 weeks straight, and just seeing all these differences make me think it's something that I have to get adjusted to, but at the same time, I can't get too attached. And I don't know if that's healthy, Maybe it is because as people, we're adaptable by nature. But imagine wanting to adapt to something and not being able to, being told or having the area show you to adapt, to invest, and to buy in, make this a home, and then all of a sudden it poof disappears. And when I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about just like the way we've been consuming as people, and especially down here because everybody's like it's such a college town, but it's a popular college town. Like I think we're a bit overpopulated down here, but it's a major source of business. That's crazy. Like it's a small town, but it's a capital. And I think tries its best to be that. But the city still feels so sectioned off, you know? And I think that's the other problem that I have. But back to my main point about the whole Dixie Cup. My whole point is just to say you should be able to stand on 10 toes about something because when I went to go talk to those workers about that, they were just like, I just work here. It's not enough for me. And I understand, well, we have a day by day. We might not agree with everything that we experience in our like professions or at our workplace, but the goal should be we should aim to be in places that we can feel good to be behind, you know. And I think that's where the shift happens once we get into those places and we stop defending bullshit, you know what I'm saying? And not saying that like everybody's on or that it's even that major, but it's the fact that we have to continuously like blot things out just to have like some type of functioning relationship. It's tiring. And then we wonder why we're so mentally exhausted. We wonder why we're so mentally exhausted. And that's the funny part. We spend all this time really trying to think about not thinking about things. And I feel like that goes against our nature as people, or at least the environment where even though it's very circumstantial, um, it's still on us to figure out at this point because at the end of the day, we have the power to make that choice. And we could give whatever reason to say, like, oh, I can't. But I don't know. When there's a will, there's a way. I think there's a heavy value in planning. And nothing beats it. Nothing beats having that feeling. And not to say that it's all about that feeling, but I think to just be in that constant state of bliss, you know. And I also think it's the reason why a lot of people choose not to be here anymore. You know what I mean? Like just making decisions that they don't agree with constantly over and over that they can't get behind rationally, morally, consciously. So there has to be a shift, you know? We could go on compartmentalizing so much, but then I think we just realize after doing that so much and being so conditioned to do it, that we end up compartmentalizing ourselves and who we are. And it's like, I think we do that too much. We cut pieces of ourselves off too much to fit into places that don't even want us there. And that can take a toll on the brain. That can take a toll on your spirit. So that has to be the goal, you know? That has to be the goal. And not even in a selfish way, but in a way to say like let me get here so I can affect more change. So that I can feel good because that energy, you can create that energy for other people, yes. But there's something about it when you're able to have that for yourself and then transfer that. Even though it may not be received or so we think. To me, honestly, I feel like people still get it, but it's because we have to compartmentalize so much that we may not understand it in that moment. We want to see what we want to see. And really, I don't think even that's the case. I think we're conditioned to see what we're conditioned to see. And so, although we may get comfortable in those positions, Um, that's all it is, you know. If we take long enough and take a step back, we'll realize that, hey, you know, this was only just a means to an end. Um, but you should always be striving for the thing that you want to do or that you see yourself doing, because that's just the nature. I think that's the reason why I do music. I think that's the reason why I started picking up this camera more and really just going at it. I directed and edited a music video not too long ago, and I did it for a good friend because we had a great talk, you know, just about life and where we wanted to be. But then I think after that talk, I realized that um, it's not about the money. You know, like we do this because it touches us in ways that other things can't. It moves us in ways that other things can't. So I did that video for free because I didn't want anybody having to think about money and that getting in the way of the process. I figured if I just have a good enough product, then at least I have something or I did something, you know, and I was present in that journey to make it. Maybe there will be some times I'll charge, but in reality, like I'm still a baby, you know, so I want to learn. And in that process, I want to be of service at the same time. And even if I do decide, or when I decide to charge, like I still want it to be of service. I think I am a very big disruptor, you know, in a way, because I just want to see people in harmony, happy, and not, you know, in a is what it is mentality, but more so in a say like, I care for this place, I care about this place, I want to be here, I'm willing to do what it takes. So, um, I don't know. I feel like that's, you know, so in contradictory with the things, other things I was saying, but it's the truth. It's the truth. Um, yeah, I don't know. I guess that's the thing we have to figure out. Not saying that we should be, you should be, but you know, I think we should always be striving to that. If not that point physically, the state of mind that allows us to feel like we're in there, you know, without compromise. Because we are very powerful beings. People are very powerful. Sometimes we get told that our power only amounts to doing so much and only means so much. But in reality, I think we're constantly shown that that is not the case. Constantly. Like it's amazing. Like we'll tell each other that, oh yeah, you know, you shouldn't do that. You don't want to do that. Don't do that. And then turn around and then go give praises and thanks to a person who's doing it. I don't even blame people for taking that approach because I know that they're conditioned to do that. They're conditioned to say that. Don't feel bad. Don't feel bad. And you got to realize too that like all this means something until it doesn't. Like if the world ended today and like all the powers and infrastructures were knocked out, this wouldn't mean anything. It would just be a memory. And in reality, that's all we have are memories at the end of the day. That's what you're going to have in your last moments. And that's if, you know, good Lord allows you to reflect back before you cross over. So, what do you want your life to be about? Not what do you think it should be because of what other people told you, but what do you want it to be about? What do you want your legacy to be about? Do you want a legacy? What type of experience do you want to leave behind? What type of experience do you want to have? And I think that's where we are, you know? I think I'm to a point now, even at this sweet and tender age, that, you know, the aesthetic is there, but like I'm in a place where, oh yeah, you doing this? Yeah, you might people look at you kind of sideways. Oh, you might be too old. But I think that's the magic of it is that a creator doesn't create for time. If you think about it, creators create to make things timeless and just to be in the moment. And that's what it's all about because everybody's trying to get out of that moment. So in turn, we try to make spaces for people who are stuck in those time loops, who can't get out of those cycles because of obligations. It's the reason why we go to work every day, but we're always listening to music, you know? But then I realized too that you got to be careful with that because then somebody will try to make a time loop out of that if you keep going back and forth and making a pattern out of it. People will try to make that into the structure and try to make that tangible or try to pull a tangible thing from that. And so I think the goal is to always just be timeless. I don't know. Just do things out of time. Because I feel like you can make a life in that sense. I feel like we've seen so many examples of people just doing that and doing that over and over and over. People are continuing to do that. People will do that, you know. And I guess it's just about how much are you willing to sacrifice to have that? How much are you willing to sacrifice to be out of time? You know, but it's a balance too. So I mean, you know, however you work that balance is however you do it. It is what it is, but not because you've given up, but you've merely surrendered to the process of just doing what it takes to get there. You know, but it's a sweet thing. So I speak positivity onto this, and as much as a chore that it can be, I feel like the more that we do that work, the easier it gets. We just have to be in it. I feel like I always come back to this topic when I make a podcast episode, but it's true, wholeheartedly. You know, I think sometimes we just underestimate what we've been born with, what we've been given. You know, and just realizing like the power is in us. You know, the power has always been in us. We make this thing, you know. As a country, we make this experience. As a people, we make this experience. As beings, we make this experience. So if you don't agree with something, you can always change it, but you got to be, in some realms, you just have to be intentional. In some realms, you have to be structured. When there's no structure, you have to create structure. And at that point, you're just structuring intelligence, you're just structuring information. Um, I feel like we give so much credit to institutions and we give so much credit to, things that have been set before us, but in reality, we are the drivers of those things. Those things do not work without us. And that's not to put an ego on anything, but I'm just saying that's just the nature of it. Systems cannot work without people, without beings. If people stop working, these things fall, these things collapse. If people continue working, these things uphold. If people decide to create it, these things are created. Life is a continuous cycle of that. Creating, uncreating, creating, uncreating simultaneously sometimes. The human body is made of matter and antimatter. We're alive and dead at the same time. And those can just be used as points of references. That's what the monks were doing back in the day, doing in nature. It's what the martial artists were doing back in the day, looking at nature. Because nature has everything, and that's why I think it's so potent. But we are nature. And although we might be disconnected to an extent, it's always in us because that's where we're made of. That's what we're made from. That's what we are. So, you know, I impart this good energy to y'all. I hope y'all have a wonderful Friday. I hope this podcast finds you in a suitable place. And until next time, but God bless. Stay safe, stay healthy. It's a lot going on in the world. Check on your people, check on your loved ones. You know, pray if you pray, meditate if you meditate, walk if you walk. And yeah, just remember that you're great. Don't be afraid to be great because that's what you are. But until next time, my good people, I will see y'all later.